Back in the B&B Appliance Mustang Express pregame show as Fort Morgan plays their season finale against the Fort Lupton Blue Devils in Fort Lupton. We're joined by Fort Morgan head coach Rick Kahl, who is coaching in his final game at the helm of the Mustangs after 24 seasons. Coach, I know it's going to be probably a pretty emotional night for you. I know you don't want to put too much emphasis on yourself, but considering that it is your final game coaching at the high school level, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of different emotions going through your head thinking about all the good times at the Fort Morgan program.
Well, it will be, and I'm kind of an emotional guy anyway, and I know it was tough playing that last game at Legion Field, and I'm sure, when I hit the field Friday night, I'll sure be thinking of that. But, it's at the same time, I just, look back and a lot of the good things that have happened over the years, and, I've always felt fortunate to be coaching in Fort Morgan, great school, great community, and had a lot of support over the years, and we've had some pretty good success, so I think I can look back at my career and feel pretty good about the way things have gone.
Obviously, there's been a lot of great moments, and with 2 state championships, I know that you a lot to be proud of. Is there any one particular memory that sticks out for you over these course of these 24 years?
It'd be tough to mention one or two. Definitely from a personal standpoint in 85 and 89 when my sons played and we made the playoffs those years. And, in 85 when Reed played, going to the playoffs after not having gone since 1977 was huge for us. And then Kent's senior year, we defeated Loveland, which was the only time we were able to do that. And then, of course, state championship games, beating Faith Christian there in 99 when we won it all was sure special for us. But, a lot of big games and a lot of fond memories.
Well, Coach, when you first arrived at Fort Morgan, I mean, obviously it was a program that had not had really much winning at all, and of course when you first got there as well, you had to, you were competing against some larger schools. Eventually you built it up, and I mean even established a reign of dominance, which not many programs do during the course of the 90s and of course in the early the 2000s. Looking at what you've done at Fort Morgan, I know you don't want to pat yourself in the back too much, but how did you arrive at, in terms of building a program at Fort Morgan, what did you feel was the most important thing to do in order to build a program of success?
Well, first of all, Pat, I was very fortunate that the administration had patience those first few years because we didn't win many games. But I guess fortunately for me, prior to that, things were down a little bit. And, of course, when you're playing against the Fort Collins, Loveland, Longmont, Greeley schools, it was tough to compete, especially the enrollment we had. But I think the big key was putting together a good coaching staff. I was fortunate to have good assistants that were able to help in the program. Of course, having kids that played with a lot of pride was huge. And I think probably the biggest thing, Pat, is getting the numbers up. When I was assistant coach in the 70s, some of those years we only had 25 to 30 players out, and I think just having a program where the kids feel like they're an important part of things, not having the young kids scrimmage against the older kids, and having a lot of patience. And in some years in the 90s we had close to 100 kids out for football, and so good assistant coaches, getting the numbers up and making kids feel good about themselves, I think, was the big key.
Well, and it certainly paid off. With a great deal of success for yourself. And looking at when you're done head coaching, it looks like I think it's almost a definite that you're going to be in the Colorado High School Football Hall of Fame in terms of coaching, and I'm sure that's something that's going to be feel pretty good.
Well, I don't know about that, and it's just, if that happens, that's great. But, it's been a good run here, and, there's going to be a lot I'm going to miss, Pat, but there's going to be some things I guess the pressure I put on myself and the stress and so forth that I'm not going to miss. But I think I can walk away and, maybe in a couple of years, depending on who gets the head coaching jobs, I can help up in the booth, maybe even help out a little bit at practice and so forth. But in the fall, when I'm not in Iowa helping my son Ken, I'll probably be here and, trying to help the program in some manner.
Well, you mentioned who the next coach might be. I'm sure that you have maybe an idea of who maybe you'd like to see be the next head coach at Fort Morgan. Do you care at all to discuss who you would like to see succeed you?
Well, I'm sure when maybe after the first of the year they're going to open it up for applicants, and I feel that Mike Gross, one of my assistants that's been with me for 15 years, is very deserving. I mean, Mike knows a lot about football. He's great with the kids, and I feel like he's paid his dues. And I think probably all of my other assistant coaches are definitely going to stick with the program, and I think they work really well together. But, I'm not going to be making the decision, but I sure hope that I'm going to have some input.
Pat O'Rourke with Fort Morgan head coach Rick Kahl. We're in the B&B Appliance Mustang Express pregame show. Bring it back with Coach Kahl after this. You're listening to B106. Pat O'Rourke back with Fort Morgan head coach Rick Kahl in the Mustang Express B&B Appliance pregame show as we talk Fort Morgan football, the final game of Coach Kahl's coaching career as they go up against the Fort Lupton Blue Devils, final game of the 2004 season. Coach, we talked. Let's talk a little bit about last week's game, a 37-8 defeat to Niwot. Kirk Lawrence and myself were discussing at the end of that game that Niwot was winning by 29 points, but it really didn't seem like you guys played that bad of a football game. I guess it just goes to show how good of a team the Niwot Cougar team is that you discussed last week.
Yes, and we coaches were talking about the performance, especially after we looked at film, and there were some areas where I feel like maybe we played as well as we have all season. I thought offensively, our linemen came off the ball really well. There were some pretty good holes. And, Trevor had, at times, some decent amount of time to throw. But, they have such a dominant team, Pat. I'd mentioned to you last week that it may be the best opponent we've faced in the Tri-Valley since the Windsor State Championship team back in '93. And they've got all the weapons. They have a great offense. Quarterback is just a phenomenal athlete. They've got 5 or 6 kids that can catch the ball. That fullback was a horse, not only running the ball, but catching the ball out of the backfield. So it's going to be tough for anybody to stop their offense if they do have one area where maybe people can attack, and that's their defense. But you also have to keep in mind that they had 3 starters out of the game, and 2 of those kids will be back by playoff time. So I would, consider them to be the top team in 3A, although I haven't seen Palisade yet.
Well, after seeing them in person, how do they compare? Are they a better team than that 93 Windsor team, and how do they compare to your awesome 1999 Fort Morgan team?
Well, of course, nobody could have beaten our 99 team at any level, and we had a phenomenal team in 92 also. But I'll tell you what, it'd be a good football game. I think definitely with some of the strengths we had back in 99, especially offensively, they would have had a hard time stopping us. But I think it would have been a pretty good ball game, and I'll tell you what, they're physical, they're athletic, and I just think they're the team to beat in 3A.
Yeah, they look very, very good, and like you said, I mean, you guys didn't really play too bad of a game, and that just goes to show how good Niwot is as they get ready for the postseason, of course, which begins next week. Well, looking at this game tonight against Fort Lupton, obviously you want to leave on a winning note. Fort Lupton's a team that's only beaten you once during your entire coaching career, so I know you want to keep that intact, but what are some of the things you'd like to see your guys do in this final game against the Blue Devils?
Well, first of all, we want to pick up a win, especially for the seniors. And when you finish off the season with a win, it just seems like it gives you a little momentum going into the next season and something to build on. But I definitely think Fort Lupton is an improved team. Talking to their coach over the weekend, he said their victory against Frederick was huge. They dominated them, and I think that's the type of win that's going to give them quite a bit of momentum coming into our game Friday. And then, of course, with that being a home game for them, that's going to be huge for them. I just think we need on offense, control the football, establish a running game, and I think that's going to be important to establish the run, Pat, because Trevor Geis has been in a wrist brace on his throwing hand all week. We're hoping that he's going to be able to go, so that could definitely affect our passing game. And then our starting offensive tackle, Ryan Ean, who's done a nice job all season. His great-grandmother passed away, and they will be in Iowa tomorrow. So, we'll have to have some kids fill in. If Trevor's not able to go, then Nick Folkendall will see quite a bit of time at quarterback. And then Tony Hokenadel and Jared Unerick and Trent Hale will be playing that left tackle position. So tough to see those guys, not be able to play, particularly Ryan Ean, since he's a senior.
Well, looking at some of those guys that are going to be playing coming up against this game in the game against the Blue Devils, trying to make an impression for next year. Obviously, next year is a long ways away, but can these guys, going into this game, try to impress the coaches a little bit to, carry something into 2005? Well,
we hope so, and we're going to, through the season, we've only had a traveling squad of about 32 guys and taking one bus. And tomorrow night we're going to take the whole team and, have those kids feel a little pride and, able to make the traveling squad. And hopefully it might be a situation where we can get everybody into the game. But, yeah, I hope that makes a difference. And, Pat, the big key for those younger kids, we're going to lose a lot of seniors. We're going to have a bunch of young kids coming back, and we're just going to stress to them, the work we've got to do in the off season. And I really think, to be quite frank with you, one of the problems we've had this year is team strength. You look at those Niwot kids; they had their sleeves rolled up and they were pretty buffed. And over the summer, we only had about 10 kids that were in the weight room, and you just to some extent, our result of our season came in July and August, when we really needed to be lifting hard. And, our kids have given a good effort all year, and we've had some, quality kids on the team. But nowadays in football, you've got to be big, fast, and strong. And when you don't have kids showing up in the weight room, that's not a very good thing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The work starts before two-a-days even begin. Well, you mentioned running the football against Fort Lupton, and this is a team that you'd like to establish a run against. It seemed like you guys were able to do that last year in your game at Fort Lupton. Is that something you're hoping to see tonight? Because you guys did do a very good job of running the ball between the tackles against the Blue Devils last year.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a key. And, they run a 5-2 defense and haven't really stunned it a whole lot. And we've ran pretty well against a 5-2 front, and we're hoping we can get our guards doing some pulling, and our fullbacks leading up in there. And, we've been getting good running production from our fullbacks, but we need to get that running game established. And I'll tell you, Pat, and I'm sure with you following us all season, penalties have been a killer for us. And, we've done that all season. It's a type of thing where, as a fan, you're probably thinking, well, I wonder if Coach Kahl addresses that and so forth, and you just talk about it. But the kids have to, be more focused on the field, more disciplined. But how many times this season have we been in a situation where it's 1st and 15 or 2nd and 15 or whatever, and that kind of takes you out of your offensive philosophy and forces you into throwing on those particular situations.
Yeah, no doubt about that. They have been a killer this season. Well, Coach, thanks a lot for joining us on not only in this particular pregame, but all the ones we've done in the past. It's been a pleasure working with you and my 6 years here. You've been a great interview each time we go through this, and it's too bad I'm not going to be able to work with you again because like John and Beltran and myself say, you're an easy interview. We don't have to work too hard because you'll give us all the good information without us having to ask a whole lot of questions. So it's been a pleasure working with you, and it's been fun covering your teams because you guys have had a ton of success making our jobs a lot of fun.
Well, thanks, Pat, and I just want to compliment you and John on the job you guys have done, and I'll tell you what, you guys very professional in what you do. Support the players, support the coaches, and I just can't say enough about the tremendous job you guys have done, and I'm sure going to miss the interviews with you.
Well, me too. I'm going to miss it, and don't be a stranger. Maybe one day we'll get you up in the booth with us.
Yeah, I think you'd have plenty of listeners, turning the dial to the other station.
I don't know about that, but Coach, thanks again, and good luck against the Fort Lupton Blue Devils. And again, it's been a pleasure as we continue on here in the Mustang Express. You're listening to B106.